This is the Landlord Survival Show. When people stop being nice and shit gets real. You're the landlord. We're here to help. This is a show for what the gurus don't tell you about owning rentals. We're here for you because we're stronger together.
Brought to you by Empire Industries Property Management. Built for investors, by investors.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Landlord Survival Show. I'm your host, Steve Rozenberg, and I'm the owner and co-founder of Empire Industries Property Management. We are a single-family property management company, and we manage about 1,000 properties all over Texas, Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth. The reason for this show is I'm an investor. I own investors, I own investment properties, and I kind of walk that walk, right? And the reason we created this show is in our life cycle of buying houses, apartments, flipping, rehabbing, all that stuff is I always see the people that are on the shows talking about the great things that happen to them, how great they are, that they've never lost a dollar, they've never gotten their clothes dirty, they make millions of dollars rolling out of bed. And the reality is that's just not true. And anybody who's been in this business for any length of time has probably gotten ripped off, has made a bad mistake, probably a bad purchase, if not like me, maybe 30 bad purchases of wrong properties, and learned lessons. And some people stay in it and some people get out. And some people say real estate sucks. I'm not going to do it anymore because it's bad. And the reality is real estate's not bad. Real estate is a piece of dirt and it's four walls and a roof. And it's what all of that, in my mind, what all that represents. And that all represents possibilities, opportunities, ways to make money. And my guest today, we're going to talk about all the different ways that you can slice up a house to make money, whether it's on the financing side, whether it's the Airbnb side, whatever it is. So we created this show for the investors that really want to get the down and dirty. We have a Facebook group called the Landlord Survival Group on Facebook. You can go join. And we also have the Landlord Survival Handbook. So one of the things, the reason I wrote this book is a lot of people want to learn how to buy properties. They want to learn how to do all these things, but they don't really think about the goal. And what I mean by that, the goal of owning real estate is to have wealth. That is the end result of what you want. The strategies are buying notes, flipping properties, buy and hold, all these things, wholesaling. These are all strategies to get you to that end goal of being wealthy. The problem is once you do all that, the way you're going to get wealthy mostly is going to be buy and hold over long term and letting appreciation and letting all those things come into play, tenant pay down your property, all that stuff. And there's a lot of challenges that go on in having those types of properties in that business model. Because you've got tenants, you've got Texas property code or whatever state you're in or whatever country you're in. You've got issues, you've got challenges, you got people that get divorced, jail, DUIs, whatever it is, they can't pay your rent. You've got all these things, dangerous breeds, discrimination lawsuits, getting a property ready, not over ready, but ready as far as what's needed. And really, there's nobody to tell you those things. There's no one there to tell me these things. Maybe Kristin, I don't think there's anyone there to tell her. And so we created this book called The Ultimate Survival Handbook to help you, the investor, figure out, okay, when I get a property, what do I need to do to get it ready? Do I do switch plate covers? What color should the doorknobs be? What is a dangerous breed animal that my insurance will drop me for? So we created this handbook. And if you go to our website, selfmanagemyproperty.com, again, www.selfmanagemyproperty.com, you can get this handbook from you and a lot of other free information. And again, it's our way of giving back to the investor community because there was no one there to show me this, and it would have helped me save a lot of missteps and a lot of mistakes today if I had that book. So again, go to our Facebook group. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to learn a lot today from my very good friend. So I'll introduce her. The way that little background of how I met Kristin is I was doing some events up in Dallas. She was doing events in Dallas. We bumped into each other. We started talking, a lot of same common thinking. She's an investor. She's a hell of an investor, but she's just wheeling and dealing. And I thought, we should do something together. So we started talking. We've done a couple shows. We've done some events together. She's got a great event up in Dallas we'll talk about. So Kristin, thanks so much for being on the show today. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. I am so thrilled to be here. Honored.
So tell everyone kind of, give them your bio. Who are you? What do you do? And then your long resume of stuff that goes on.
My long resume of like how I started with this. So
Everything.
I'm Kristin Gerst. I own currently Capricorn Mortgage Investments. I also run my own portfolio, and I've recently started Elite Airbnb and started Airbnbs. I go back 15 years starting to invest in real estate. I picked up my first acquisition January 2005, which was an 8-unit apartment building in a very, very rough part of downtown Dallas. And I self-managed it. By when the market crashed in July 2008, I had 61 doors, all rented Section 8, that I was self-property managing, and I hated life. I just absolutely couldn't stand it. And I'm a control freak. So, finding the right property manager is a necessity if you want to grow your business and become huge. I didn't find that one back then in Dallas 15 years ago. So I started owner financing and I got extremely good at it. So every time one of my 61 clients, because nobody was lending money anymore to buy real estate, once they vacated, then I would owner finance that property. I'd take 10% down and then stick somebody in and get monthly payments. In essence, just changing my rentals into paper. And what I found was there are pros and cons to doing both. But as far as immediate business, I was making more money doing owner financing than I was renting property.
So now, was that kind of a cash flow play? Like basically you turned it in from, real estate, and my education has always been when you're buying real estate and owning real estate, that's kind of the long play, right? That's the long-term play. And then the cash flow is more immediate, kind of like, okay, I'm getting money. I'm actually seeing realized return. So was that the difference? The
difference is, if you put a 30-year mortgage on a rental property, you've learned very quickly that you're working for that rental property for the better part until it's paid off. You just are.
It's not passive?
It's not instant overnight wealth, but you've got cash flow. And my 61 doors, could I live off of those rented Section 8? Yeah, each one of those 61 was cash flowing $200 to $500 a month. Okay. But if I had a bad month, like I remember one month, and this was maybe April, May 2009, I had 5 outdoor ACs get stolen in one night. And when you're dealing with that, that's something that's not going to be able to go on. It wasn't something I was taking insurance claims on because it was just too small and you'd just basically be paying a deductible. So I was out of pocket that month, a ton of money.
And what's interesting is real quick, just to hit on that, what investors need to realize is when you own a rental property and that happens, it's no longer the tenant's problem. It's now your problem because the tenant's going to look at you and go, someone stole your AC and I need air conditioning. And then, and on top of that, if you know Texas property code,
obligated to give me that air conditioning.
Absolutely. And if you know Texas property code and they know Texas property code, by law, there's certain things that you have to do, like supply them with air conditioning. If it's over 85 degrees, legally, you have so many days or hours to get that happen. So all of a sudden, these 5 ACs at, whatever it is, X dollars per is now a you problem. It's no longer a tenant problem. And that's where the stress starts kicking up, right?
Right. And so what I found was, so after it took me several years, right? Because I had to wait, and I finally then sold off a chunk of them to an investor, and they were just long-term tenants, Section 8 tenants that were leaving. So I said, I'm just going to sell these to an investor, owner finance, because I don't want to be in that game anymore. And when I actually took all of my expenses, my vacancy rate, my maintenance calls, all of that, I was making more money owner financing those than I was renting them. Now everybody's going, oh, let me sell my owner finance. Hold on. There are some other things that you have to keep in mind. Now, when the market got good again a couple of years ago, all of a sudden, these homes that I had owner financed at, say, $70,000 were now worth $120,000, $130,000. And had I waited and rented those out 3 to 5 years, I could have sold these for huge gains, at that. And obviously, because now I own the mortgage, I'm still cash flowing, cash flowing right off all these, and I'm still profiting, so I'm not upset. But at the same time, while I'm making a 10% return annually on that, it wasn't getting these huge windfall when properties appreciate. So that's what you have to, your trade-off is. And maybe it should be a mixture, because why did I start an Airbnb company? Because my accountant said, you don't own any property, you're getting killed in taxes. You need to have some depreciating assets on the books, which means, you need some rental properties. And I was like, well, I don't want to go back to Section 8 renting. I got out of that for a reason, and so I was like, so I came up with that. So to own property and, be able to have breaks on my taxes. Because when I was a landlord, oh my gosh, I never paid a penny in tax. I got everything back.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's funny. Me, with all the losses I've carried forward from the bad properties, airline pilot and having an airline pilot income, I still get tax breaks. Even it's probably been 10 years. I mean, that just shows you yeah, it's great, but that's not why you buy property. But let me ask you this. I wrote a couple of notes I want to ask you. My first question is why did you buy so let's say I'm a new investor and I'm trying to figure this out.
Right.
Why did you make the decision to buy the 8-plex in the ghetto? What was it in your mind that you thought this makes sense to me?
So
I'm just curious what you did.
I started looking, it took several months to buy this 8-plex, right? I was in my 20s. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was young. I was pregnant with my second baby. So to get started in real estate investing, I had this really great career as a teacher. I built up my program. I decided that I couldn't put my first baby in daycare. So I said, as soon as I felt him, I was like, oh, I can't do that, and I'm going to stay home. Well, my husband recognized that, oh my gosh, she's losing her mind 3 months into it. And so he saw me going crazy. And so he came home and he goes, oh yeah, I've just finished this book. Do you want to read it? And I'm not doing anything, sitting at home chilling with an infant, and it's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. All right, well, that was awesome. I devoured it in a day. Then he came home with another book, the ABCs of Real Estate Investing from Ken Mackerel. He goes, this is just something I'm interested in. And he totally got me, to read, a bunch of these books. Then I went to the bookstore and I picked up duplexes, triplexes, and quads, which is, this is 15 years ago. Right. And I was like going, well, okay, so we buy a rental house and that's great. But if we buy a 4-plex, the first 2 units will pay for the debt retirement, and then the next 2 units are profit. So we could even have a 50% occupancy rate and we could still be making money. Well, then it goes, well, if 4 is good, then 6 is better. And then my, realtor shows up with an 8-plex. And so I'm going, yeah, why not? The problem with the 8-plex and why I now know after I buy it, you're talking about, I earned every penny down there.
Oh yeah.
Did I lose money? Not really. I had tons of write-offs on that place, but I wouldn't say I actually lost. I made money on the place. But what I didn't know was an 8-unit apartment building is too small to have a manager.
Absolutely.
On the property. Then finding somebody to manage an 8-unit apartment building 2 blocks from the intersection of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. Also
probably tough. Yeah.
Very difficult. And I came in and the rents were way below market. So I had instantly raised stuff up. My constant thing was old ladies coming in and being so nice and then subletting to drug dealers.
Right.
And I don't live down there and I'm not going to live down there. So I'm down there once a week, checking on my property, picking up rent, stuff like that. And, then all of a sudden I hear from other, somebody living there, you let another drug dealer in. And I'm like, no, I background checked everybody, So he said, what do you do there? And it turned into be just, I hired one property management company and they embezzled close to $50,000. They had receipts, of course, for everything, but nothing to really show for it. And you learn really hard lessons.
Well, and that's my whole point. And it's funny. So let me ask you this, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my story, which is pretty funny, sort of. Now it's funny. It wasn't funny at the time, but
yeah.
What lesson did you come away from that from? Was it a mistake even going down that path of buying a low income? Because a lot of people go like, I'm going to buy this low income property because it fits my budget, or it's easy because it's an 8-plex or 4-plex. What lesson did you pull out of that? Because there's lessons in there, I'm sure many that you've taken away.
One, I think the number one lesson from that is, I was a brand newbie investor, and I was too dumb to go buy that. And I didn't know I was dumb. I think I'm being smart.
Sure.
But I was.
You're book smart, right? You're book smart. You read the book. The book says buy this.
I read 4 or 5 books. I read 4 or 5 books. How hard could it be? It's funny. There's so many people that have analysis paralysis to get into real estate investing. I was like, no, I can do this. It's great. This just makes so much sense. I can run this business. Real estate in a bubble, though, is much different than real estate in real life. And so do I say that new investors should get started in the low income market? Yes. That one was probably a little too low income because, I could only get at any time, I think the highest I had was 50% occupied with Section 8 tenants, because Section 8 tenants could afford to get something nicer.
Right.
The low income areas where it was 3-bedroom, 2-bath or 4-bedroom, 2-bath, brick, basically built like 2005, 2006. I was renting those things out for $1,200 a month to Section 8 tenants. And that was primarily what I was holding when the market collapsed. So, and it was all government-backed contracts. So I never missed a step in the credit market crisis. Did I look good on paper? No. I mean, instantly, all of my assets devalued by about half. So I looked like I was underwater, and I was not creditworthy to anybody because I was underwater with all these assets. But at the same time, I was cash flowing on everything. People are like, well, are you going to strategically foreclose? I'm like, why would I do that? The market.
I remember as people asking us that, are you going to strategically walk away or forego? I remember they came up with this new term, and I'm like, what does that even mean? Like that, I'm like these people still need a roof over their head. They're still going to pay their rent. Like, it may not be worth as much on paper, but I'm still making my money. Like, I'm not going to sell it, obviously, but these people still, they don't turn into sugar and melt away. Like, they still are going to pay their rent because they have to live somewhere.
Correct. And for me, the government was backing this. So am I a big proponent of Section 8, especially, in Dallas, anything south of 30, any rougher areas, if you can get Section 8 to come in there, you make it nice enough where Section 8 will want to rent it all day long. I am a proponent of low income properties.
And, it's a matter of having, you kind of said it, it's a matter of having the right processes for the business model. And one thing I learned when Pete and I had, I don't know, maybe 35 or 40 low income houses, we didn't have the right model wrapped around that. We wanted to be hands off, and we wanted these tenants to pay online and automate it. We had the right concept, wrong clientele.
Which is why Section 8 worked so well for me.
Absolutely.
Because the first of the month, and I was picky on which housing authority, because in Dallas we have 16 different housing authorities. So I was discriminatory against housing authority because I knew Dallas County, that had the second highest number of vouchers. I knew that they actually stuck to the government guidelines and made them pay a tenant portion. So if my rent was, say, $1,000 a month, I might have somebody in there at $550 or $600 depending on their job. Right. Whereas if they went to Dallas Housing Authority, the city of Dallas, I knew that those vouchers, they typically and they had the most of them, to save on, I guess, paperwork or admin fees, they would do 0 tenant portions. So 90% of the tenants I had from that were 0 tenant portions. That meant 100% of my rent was paid the first direct deposit into my account.
Got it. So my story, you talked about that. Well, let me back up a second. I think what's interesting, you'd mentioned about the management fees, and this is what a lot of people, I think they miss. I get a lot of people that, we manage single family houses. That's what we do. We make cheese pizzas. We do a very good job of making our cheese pizzas, and that's all we do. And people go, well, when are you guys going to get bigger and manage apartments? And I say, well, what do you mean by that? And they'll say, well, I want to buy apartments. I want to go big time. And I say, okay, well, how many apartments are you going to buy? I don't know, 20, 30, maybe 50. Well, what people don't understand about apartments in general, at least in Houston and in other places, is normally, at least in Houston, if you are not managing, if you're not owning at least 75 doors, there is not enough cash flow to support an on-site manager and a full-time management company to manage the on-site manager. So what happens is you have this hybrid. You have the person living there. Normally it's a lady that squawks the loudest and she's been there the longest, and she's going to be your buddy and she's going to tell you all the things that are going on about everyone else in the complex. And she now is your manager. And what people don't understand with that is basically the CEO of your company now. And you are basically entrusting your hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars maybe to run your company. And that is the CEO. There's no education. There's no legal knowledge. They don't know what they're doing.
And let's be honest. They, there were a couple of people down there and they were super nice to me. But the ones that were the nicest were the ones
those are the worst.
That hated me the most on site.
Absolutely.
And and that was a big eye opener for me. It was, I grew up in Chicago. I had never experienced, urban blight, poverty before. I'd never seen it. I'd never been in a neighborhood like that. And I was used to, having a sunny disposition and everybody loving me. And so how could I come into this place and people just hate everything about me? I mean, I used to get gift baskets to my tenants at Christmas, and I still know that they hated me. I didn't get it at first. It probably took maybe year 3 or 4 of owning that place. And I realized, I'm like, these people hate me. I'm like, they loathe me every time they see me.
And what's interesting is in my business, so when we were doing this, at first I would go around and collect the rent myself. Like I was like, I'm going to go on Friday on the 1st and I'm going to pick up the rent. And my business partner, Pete, would say, why are you doing that? I'm like, because I want to get the money. I want to make sure that I get the money so we can pay the bills. He says, they've been renting their whole life. You think they don't know when rent's due? You think they don't know how to pay? He says, either they're training you or you're training them. He goes, right now, they're training you to drive to their house and pick up the rent. And he goes, what are you going to do if they're not there? I'm like, well, why wouldn't they be there? It's like the 1st of the month. He goes, well, let's say they're working. So long story short, after going there on the 1st and they don't have it, let's say the 1st is a Monday or Tuesday, and they say, I get paid on Friday, I'll have it on Friday. I'm like, okay. So I'm driving around town doing my pickups. I come back on Friday, lo and behold, they're not around. Car's in the driveway, but they're not answering the door. Now I just wasted an hour of my time each way to drive to this house to pick up $700 in rent, and they don't even answer the door. And their phone's disconnected. How does that happen? I don't know, but their phones get disconnected like that, And it was this eternal cycle that I was getting a lesson taught to me.
Well, and that goes back to, anything that is low income at all, those people are lifelong renters. In fact, they're generational renters.
Generational.
They're
Absolutely.
They're 5, 6 generation renters.
Yep.
Always been renters. So they know the ins and outs. All of their friends rent. They have somebody who was taken to court and they beat it. Why? Because they did this. Well, okay, well, I'm going to do that and I'm going to live for free for a while. So if you're doing low income, I tell everybody, learn Section 8. It's a packet of paperwork, like literally 20 forms. And if you can read and fill them out, like they're asking you, how many bedrooms does your place have? What's the street address? Do you have air conditioning? And they ask you all of these things. Can you do that? Yes. The crazy thing is, if you know where Section 8 is paying, so like I knew that there was one zip code that was in Dallas, but it was also in Mesquite. It was primarily in Mesquite, but this one pocket had the same zip code. Well, Section 8 pays by zip code. So you go down and look at your zip code and go, all right, what are the highest zip codes down here where I'm buying? So I could buy a house on the Dallas side as opposed to the Mesquite side for, almost half of what I could. And so I'd be into it for a lot cheaper, but also the rents were cheaper on the Dallas side than the Mesquite side. So I was actually making, in some cases 50% more on rent, from Section 8 right there because I picked the right zip code. People are always like, oh, Section 8 doesn't pay enough. And I said, no, they do. You just kind of have to know how to game the system.
You got to know what you're doing. Now, let me ask you this. All the things that you learned from Section 8, everything that you just said, had you owned 61 nice houses, right? Upper end, high rental properties, let's just say, do you think you would have gone the same route as the notes?
Oh, no. Well, maybe. The reason why I ended up going into owner financing, other than, it was an unfortunate incident and I didn't like my clientele very much, the Section 8 clientele, but I knew I needed to get out of that.
Right.
But other than, I couldn't get any more financing to buy real estate.
Okay.
So I had to do something different. So, I have these 61 doors. Yeah, they're low income. I'm totally full out on mortgages. I can't get any more financing. So what I did was I learned how to wholesale, because I'm like, all right, well, it's real estate investing. So I'm wholesaling, right? And I'm making cash.
Right.
Well, now I've got cash saved up and now I can go buy something. Cool. But, if it had been higher end homes, one, I wouldn't have had 61. Because in these lower income neighborhoods, you can get much better deals. And what I was doing back then was for refi cash outs, which is how
okay, so let's say this. Let's say, and Pete and I talk about this a lot. It's like, okay, if we didn't buy 30, 40 low income houses, would we have been better off buying 20 nice houses? And the reason I say that is I remember Pete and I would be slugging it out in the ghetto, trying to get our rents and fighting tenants, and they're stripping wiring, and we're just like in the battlefield. And then I talk to these other guys, and the guy's like, yeah, I've got 10 or 15 properties, never see them, never talk to the tenants. They stay for 5 years. And I'm thinking, what world do you live in, man? This isn't my world.
Instead of ones that are, well, and if what you're like, Section 8 is great because they're required to stay there for a year.
And if they stick to you, they get kicked out of Section 8 normally.
Right. And if they have even if they had a $50 tenant portion or something like that,
right?
If they didn't pay it and they ended up owing money at that yearly thing, they have to come to you and have you sign this piece of paper.
Yeah.
That says they've paid all their rent and they don't owe you anything. Well, if they don't have that paper signed, they are required to stay an additional year until that next meeting.
Really?
So if they have any money that they owe you and they can't come up with it, they're not moving. I had one woman who she stayed there. She sent me a card when she left. I sold that property to an investor, owner finance. But, I kept tabs with her just because she was the first one I ever had, like Section 8. And she sent me a card last year. She finally moved. She owes money every single year. And some years it was huge. Some years it was only a few $100. But she ended up staying there. What is that? I think 13 years.
Wow.
She basically paid for that property.
And again, that's just something I think about. Like, now, if I did not buy these low-income houses, get my butt kicked, have all these problems, I would never have created a management company and have what I have today. So, life takes you down these paths. You would not.
Right. And you know what? I'm thankful for all of the lessons that I had.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And,
absolutely.
and getting in, now I'm buying, I'm in like graduate level real estate investing, investing in notes and being the bank 100% of the time, and I'm buying, like yesterday I got in just shy of $2 million of notes to buy, and I haven't done all my due diligence on that, but, I'm trying to buy about $3 to $5 million a month. So, when you're playing at that level of the game, yeah, I'm thankful for all of the really hard lessons that I learned to get to that point. What did I learn about self-managing 61 doors that were primarily rented Section 8? Yeah, go get a property management company.
You don't want to do it, yeah. And the problem is, in general, property management companies, even like myself, we won't manage low-income properties. Why? Because it's almost double the staff time to deal with it. And we're going, why would I manage your property for $700, let's say at a percentage, let's say 10%, when I could manage a $3,000 rental and they never even call me? Whereas the $700 is I'm dealing with it night and day, problems, drama. I mean, it's just it's ever like in a blender. And I'm thinking, as an owner of a company with staff hours, I got to go, where's the best use of my staff time and their sanity? Because you're going, hey, this is no longer my problem. This is your problem. And we're going, we don't want your problem. Push it back,
No, and I agree with you. I agree with you 100% on that. It is devilishly hard to find somebody. Did I have people who are willing to do it? Yes. But, I am, especially in the last couple of years, because I don't just have like, you know, most note investors out there, if they go, oh, I'm a note investor, right? They're buying 1 or 2 a year,
Right.
you know, 3 or 4. It's not much, right? And when I started this company in 2015, it's kind of how it started, right? I'd be, oh, I've picked up a note. Now I've sold a note, right? I'd have a lunch and learn and for some IRA investors, and, you know, somebody would buy a note. And I'm like, you know, I mean, like, this is just awful. It's awful, right. you know, and I'm like, this isn't a company. This isn't a business. There's no scaling
Right.
this. And so, you know, I really focused on business, and, you know, the E-Myth was revolutionary for me. You know, that is my number one goal this year, is to do E-Myth and, you know, and to live E-Myth, to do it where I'm automating everything and I'm working on my business, not in my business.
So can we, without, we're not going to divulge any of your secrets, but could you just explain what note buying is, what you do, just in a general?
Yeah. No, and
people don't understand it.
Well, and you know, a lot of people are going to be here. Hey, folks, when I lose you, just hit the rewind button.
Yeah.
And then watch again. And then if I lose you again, try it again. And if you still don't get it, text me, or, you know, send me an email and ask the questions. Because I lose a ton of people when I start talking about mortgages. A lot of people don't know that you can buy mortgages. Yep. And, you know, if they've ever had a mortgage with, say, Bank of America was notorious about it, you know, 10 years ago, you had a loan with Bank of America, it got sold to somebody. And that was the first time I was like, wait, can they just do that, you know, without my permission? Oh yeah, it's a marketable asset. So I buy a mortgage note. I buy the debt on the property. Everybody wants to know, so you take ownership of the property? No, I am not in the business of owning property whatsoever. I'm in the business of basically stepping into a lender's shoes. So I pay off, let's say that this, you know, a lot of it, I'm more primarily buying, you know, owner finance mortgage notes, because, you know, ones that are performing. So I look for ones with great payment histories that I don't have to worry about, that I'm not going to have any headaches from, that are just constantly paying on time when they should. They will have 9-10% interest rates usually. And when I purchase one of those, a lot of times they'll have like an underlying lien. So let's say the investor picked up a property subject to and then wrapped that subject to note. I'm buying that wrap note, right? Because I want the 9 or 10% interest, and I'm paying off any underlying debt. And that way, then I get to capture 100% of that payment instead of only, you know, making a couple $100.
And you are now the person that essentially they're making their payments to, and you are the one who can foreclose on them, and but you don't change the terms of, like, and a lot of people ask me that question. That's why I'm trying to clarify. Do you necessarily change the terms of the agreement, or you take it as is in place?
I am not allowed to alter those terms one bit.
Right.
So whatever it says on that deed of trust and note that, you know, outlines the deal, that's it. I cannot change anything, any of part of the payment from that owner, you know, from that borrower to
whatever was signed and agreed upon by the two parties.
Correct.
Now, let me ask you this. Is there a national average, or obviously if you have more due diligence, you're going to be maybe better than the average of people that actually do that you end up rescinding and taking back the property? Is there a national average? Is there a price point average?
I don't know what the national average is. My note servicer, I think, hovers right around 1.8% foreclosure rate.
Okay.
I have currently in my possession, I have 2 notes. I mean, it's a very, very low percentage. I currently have 2 that are with the same investor, and he's a con artist. And he's not paying everybody all over town. So, you know, I'm trying to get those properties back. Other than that, you know, it's mailbox money. It's direct deposited the first of the month. I don't have to worry about it. I have a note servicer that takes care of all of that, and her services are paid for by my borrowers. So I don't even pay for that. I don't have management fees on all of my assets that are under management. So it's great.
You know, what's funny is when we had a bunch of our properties, 2008, 2009, we couldn't get rid of them. We came up with the idea that we would owner finance. There was a lot of Canadians that were buying properties in the U.S. because the Canadian dollar was so much stronger than the U.S. dollar. So what we did is we ended up owner financing them to investors.
Love it.
And
Love
we were still the management company. So we still managed the asset, and we put in there that if for some reason they don't pay, we can take the rent money as mortgage money because the money comes through us first. So we're managing the asset, and we tell them, listen, we will keep managing it. No one's going to know. Like, basically, it's going to keep as is. We will manage it for you. But if, you know, and we put in there that if for some reason you stop paying, obviously we can take it back, but we're going to redirect those funds to go to us. And it worked great. The investors loved it because they couldn't get loans. Being Canadian, they can't get a loan. They want to get in the investment. I mean,
honestly, I wish I'd thought about that. That would have been great. You know, you know, the problem is you still are having cash flow there. I mean, not with every investor. You know, there's a lot of investors. Dallas is always, or in Texas, right? Houston, Dallas, not so much Austin, but San Antonio definitely. We've always had a very unique real estate investing experience ever since I've been involved, where you could buy a piece of property, put a mortgage on it, and our rents have always been higher than what it costs to own. Yeah. That is completely, contradictory to the rest of the nation.
Yeah,
the rest of the nation is like, that's unheard of. We work for our rental properties. We're constantly feeding money into them, and we get to enjoy appreciation. You know, in 20 years, it's going to pay for my kids' college or something like that. But in Texas, we're spoiled where you can cash flow immediately. Again, I don't know with your Canadians. I don't know that I would have had the savvy 10 years ago to
it's funny
for the same thing, so they broke even. I don't know.
Well, the way that this happened is we had a lot of investors coming down to buy properties. They were doing the tax liens and the deeds, and you know, they basically come down on a bus tour like Cannonball Run. You know, they drive around Houston and they buy these properties at the tax sale, and then we go look at these properties and we're like, that is a piece of shit house. Like, did you see that house? And they're like, no, I bought it for $5,000, and we're like, you overpaid because it's not a house. And so then they started asking us, hey, could you help us find a deal? Can you help us? So we started helping them. Then we realized they can't get a loan. But they were, you know, these are people in the oil business. These are people that had a lot of money, and they said, hey, I'll pay cash. So we started looking at our problem. We had a problem. They had a problem. We had a solution. And we were very upfront with them saying, listen, these are tough properties. You know, we own them. Here's the numbers. Here's the books on them. This is what you can expect, but you can get your foot in the door and get in the game at least. And they were like, no problem. And so for us, it worked well. It fixed our need. We wanted to get out of it so we could grow our management company and not have a sidetrack. And it helped them because they got their foot in the door and they own investments. And we still manage them to this day. And that was 6, 7, 8 years ago. So, I mean.
And seriously, and it's finding that win-win, you know, when you're owner financing. And that's why I love owner financing, you know, and I tell everybody, hey, get ready, because owner financing, we've been in a seller's market for several years. Well, you know, in a correction, that's going to go away. And
it's a cycle, right? It's a cycle. Everything changes. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so if we do experience a dip in the market, which, you know, certain areas it's inevitable, you know, because we've had so much appreciation, and nobody's got a crystal ball, but you know, it's expected at the end of this year that's where we'll be. Owner finance is where it's going to be again, just like you got into it at the exact same time I did. And that's not coincidence. That's just, you know, taking advantage of a market cycle.
It's being able to audibilize and seeing something going on and going, okay, I've got to make a change. Like and that's, you did what I did. It's like, okay, I've got to make a change. This is an opportunity. I've got to take advantage. And we owner finance some to end buyers. And then we sold the notes at a discounted rate to a note buyer. They were happy. We were happy. Win-win, you know? So, I mean, I get it. It works well. Now,
and you know, and that's why, so, you know, I'm sitting on all of these notes, and like anything I was able to pick up, you know, probably after, I mean, I even owner financed that 8-unit apartment building. So
really? Yeah.
It was great. You know, I didn't have that nightmare of a management situation. You know, I was totally, you know, when I finally owner financed everything, I realized I didn't have a daily task to do anything. Right. So, you know, then I was focused on, okay, well, I guess I just go out and do this again and go get more notes, or, you know, go create more owner finance properties. So, you know, everything passed, you know, once I owner financed all those 61 doors, I ended up with, you know, I started acquiring more properties and doing owner finance. And all of it is, you know, as soon as I got it done, then it was great. But what I found was, I'm like, I was getting all these letters in my mailbox going, oh, we want to buy your note. And I'm like, hey, I've got a lot of equity in this one. That would be really awesome to sell this thing, and then get all this cash, because then I could go reinvest in something, right? And they were telling me, oh yeah, we'll pay 85 cents on the dollar for unpaid principal balance. And I'm like, well, it's not great, but it's, it works. I could do that. And then it would come down, it would be 3-4 months later, and they're like, yeah, we just can't get the deal done at that, but we can buy it like 60 or 65 cents on the dollar. And I'm like, why would I sell that to you?
It's like, I don't have a problem. I don't need to get rid of this. It's actually producing, like, I agree. And it's like, it's not a problem. If it's a problem, it's one thing. Because when you have a problem, it's not a monetary thing. It's a matter of I just want this headache, this stressful life, this sleepless nights. I just want it over with. It's not a problem. It's like, I was reluctant at 85. I'm definitely a no-go at 80 and below.
Exactly. And for me, I mean, I'm buying in the low 90s, and I know that I've got some competitors out there. I know they hate it, because, if anybody hears, oh, Capricorn's buying in the low 90s, why would you sell anywhere else? Because I'm paying 10 to 15% more, consistently than everybody else.
Right.
But, I work in volume. I am not, I make 3 to 5%. That's it. And people, historically in the note space, people want these huge home run wins, where they're making 30%, on a loan. And the only way they can do that is if they pick it up super, super cheap. And even then, what I was finding was, when I tried to sell the note on the apartment building, they put it under at something ridiculous. And then they ended up, and I accepted the low amount because I'm like, you know what? I want my equity out of this one. It's sizable. I can afford to do this at a lower thing. It's fine. I'm still making money. And they would daisy chain it. So it would start with the guy who contacted me. It's locked up with this guy, and there is no end closing date on this contract. And then he presents it to a buddy of his who goes, yeah, I've got somebody, who presents it to another broker, who presents it to another broker. I found out that it had been daisy chained 7 times, and there was really no end buyer. It was like a bunch of guys who hung out at some, note buying convention, and nobody actually had real buyers. And so I'm like, there's got to be a better way. And so that's, what did I learn? I learned that you need a lot of money, a lot of capital to do this. And so you just work from a large pool of capital to buy these things, and then you have them all on a big spreadsheet. And the guys that I sell to won't let me in the door without 3 to 5 million on a spreadsheet.
Really?
Yeah. And so people are like, oh, well, how do I get into this? And I'm like, not very easily. And I'm like, I hold on to, it took me 1.5 years to find those buyers. And, I'm not, that's really, why I do so well. So I'm like, I'm not giving that up. That and, having money to be able to start doing it.
Right.
But I encourage, I'm like, the going rate for these is 10 to 15% less than what I'm paying. So call me up, send me the info. I'll give you a quote price, and then you can go back and negotiate whatever you want with your buyer.
Right.
So basically I create a bunch of wholesaling, note bird dogs or note wholesalers. So, and people are, just bringing me notes. They're like, hey, what would you pay for this? I'm like, I pay this. Let me know if that works.
So that's just, you're basically using leverage. Now you're leveraging other people.
Yeah. And, then that's a great way to build business. If you're, because a lot of times, I'm making 3 to 5%. I've got bird dogs making 10, 15. I have one that made 20% on the deal. And I walked with 4.
Right.
That guy made way more on that one note than I did. But you know what? He's probably going to do 1 or 2 deals a year, and that's awesome. But for me, I'm looking to do, move around 40 to 50 notes a month. So yeah, it's completely different ballgame.
So we're almost out of time, but I want to talk about where you're at today. And
oh yeah,
give us a quick,
the sexy conversation
about what you got going on, because you've delved into another cycle of real estate, taking action, right? You're taking action.
Yeah, no, I did. And I jumped in. I researched this space a ton. So, and it's called Airbnb, but Airbnb has such a negative connotation. I like to call it furnished corporate rentals.
Okay.
They're short-term furnished corporate rentals. And so I'm sitting in one of them right now. They're phenomenal. The first one that I did, I got it up, marketed it on various sites on October 27th. And within 6 days, I went 100% occupied for the month of November.
Nice.
And, people are always like, well, what are the numbers for stuff like this? My gross rentals have consistently, with the exception of January was a slightly slow month, but my gross rentals are 3 times what I can rent them for.
Really?
Yeah, a month, 3 times. So, on something like, I'm pulling in, just shy of 3,000 on that first one, 3,000 a month. It's really nice. I mean, all of mine, I have basically taken down to the studs. I've modernized everything. They're all smart. They're all smart homes so that I can control, thermostats and door locks and all of that from wherever I am in the world, as long as I have a Wi-Fi connection.
Right.
And you know me, I travel a ton.
Yeah.
So I can't be creating some crazy hands-on business.
You were just in Italy, weren't you, with your family?
Yeah, I was in Italy and with my family. I was in Iceland twice this past fall, and I was in Amsterdam by myself, just hanging out. So
nice. So is this something that you're going to pursue, and you're going to kind of 10x this whole?
So right now I just a couple weeks ago I got this one, and then another one that's just downstairs from it. This one's London. The other one's Paris. Right. I've been picking theme cities, and then if you can see over my right hand shoulder, you can see that Union Jack pillow. Yep. And then over here we've got another London painting. So like all of the art and furnishings, everything's functional, but you need to have kind of a theme for your decoration. It makes it a hell of a lot easier, I've found. But yeah, so I've got those 2 up and running the last couple of weeks. I went to 82% occupied for the month of March.
Okay.
I'm already booked up at like 50% for next month on both of them. So that's, as far as these numbers, and I've got my prices pretty low on these. These 2 that I just brought up are 2-bedroom, 2 baths. And I'm probably about 60% of where I should be on price. But you have to get a certain number of reviews to get your star rating advertised to the world. So I figure I start low, and then once I get my reviews, then I'll, put them up higher. Once everybody can read these reviews and go, oh my gosh, these places are amazing.
Get the momentum wheel turning, basically.
Yeah, and in the Airbnb space, I decided, so, if you go and look at the Airbnb model, everybody thinks it means bed and breakfast. It doesn't mean bed and breakfast. It means air bed, no breakfast is what Airbnb stands for.
I didn't know that. Interesting.
Nobody does. Nobody knows where the history of this company that got started. There is a whole host of online companies that you can use. Airbnb being the most famous, yes, it's the easiest one, right? Sure. And where I get 90% of my business. But, if you go into those spaces, majority of Airbnbs, depending on the city you're in, the average cost, they're gross. They're disgusting. And people will they've put like garage sale furniture in there. It could have, cooties, bed bugs, who knows? Nothing has been updated. People are Airbnb just garbage.
Yeah. Now, it's bringing down the whole industry as a whole at some point.
I'm not sure about that. I just knew that I wanted to create elite properties and get an elite clientele. My target market are businessmen, traveling businessmen to Dallas. I had one group, 2 guys who stayed in this unit last week. They just booked yesterday for 2 weeks from now. You know, so, and it's a bunch of guys from the same office who come down and work at Abbott Labs. So it's phenomenal that, you know, you can get repeat business from businessmen coming to Dallas. And then weekends, you've got concerts, all of that. So, you know, as far as getting people want something nice. My cleaning fees on this are $100. And people are paying it. I mean, I was like, okay, well, it's what it costs me to clean these things. So I'm gonna stick it on there and see what happens.
It works.
They're rented, so nobody cares.
Wow. Well, again, there's so much here. We're gonna have to do another show.
On Airbnbs. Airbnbs are, I gotta say, the returns that I have personally seen are insane. People will say your furnishings are, you know, if you see my professional, you know, I had a professional photographer come out and photograph everything. Most people do not do that on Airbnb.
Right.
So, you know, if people find my listing, you know, they're like, oh, you know, this is head and shoulders over everything. I mean, my bath products alone cost $150 just for the bottles that are in there. And my beds are the Westin Heavenly beds from the Westin e-commerce site at a cost of about $2,000 a piece per mattress.
Well, you'll get that back, obviously.
Right, but if they stay occupied and I can charge a premium for a night, you know, if it's the same as, you know, really great.
Worth it.
It is.
Yeah, cool. Well, Kristin, if people want to get a hold of you and they want to talk to you about notes or Airbnb or go to, you know, you have an event, you got the REI Social Club.
Real Estate Investor Social Club here in Dallas and Fort Worth. We're in Fort Worth next, I think we're actually going to be at Champs in Irving next month.
What dates do you do those events?
Third Tuesday of the month.
Third Tuesday. Now, if they want to find you on Facebook or they want to go to your website and they want to see all this, what's your information to do that?
So Kristin, Kristin, Gerst, Gerst. You can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, not so much Instagram, but Facebook and LinkedIn. I've got Capricorn Mortgage Investments, REI Social Club. Those are great ways to find me. But yeah, send me a direct message through Facebook. That's easy. If you want my email, it's info@capricornmortgage.com.
Okay.
So yeah, no, it's easy to get a hold of me. I'm always buying owner finance mortgage notes. If you have questions about Airbnbs, you know, I love to talk real estate. I'll talk to you for hours about real estate. So.
Yeah, you and I have had a lot of conversations about it, and your events are great. So if you're in the Dallas area or the Fort Worth area, obviously do that. You know, you're everywhere. You're on Propelio. You're on.
Yeah, no, I'm on Propelio. Yeah, you want to watch me? You want to watch me live? Be a jackass tomorrow. That way, you know. Fridays at 11. Fridays at 11.
There you go. So, you know, everyone, again, you know, definitely if you want to know about notes, this is the person. That's why I have her on the show, because she knows what she's doing and she actually is in the heat of battle. If you want to look at us, go to selfmanagemyproperty.com. You can go there. You can find the shows. We are on iTunes. Only request I have is maybe that you would share the show with other people so that other people know about it. Because again, I don't think there's anyone here that talks about the failures in investing and how they overcame those failures. And to me, you know, I'm sure as Kristin could agree, that's important. And nobody talks about those things.
Well, and any real estate investor who starts telling you how they have never failed, I listen to these people and I instantly shut off because I'm like, y'all, I lost money on a freaking stupid flip a year and a half ago. And I'm like, you know, and I thought it was, you know, a slam dunk. I mean, I don't lose much, but you know, it
happens.
Yeah, it happens. And, you know, and I'm like, so anybody loses money at any time doing this. And, you know, but they're all learning experiences. And the people who can sit there and tell you about the things that they did wrong, you want to listen to that because that's what you're going to learn from. And you're going to learn, okay, well, yeah, I was talking to her and she said she went about it this way and she lost a ton of money. Well, I don't want to go do that. You know, let me do something different.
Yeah, and that's what's so important about this group. And on our Facebook group, the Landlord Survival group. So again, there's a lot of resources out there. You can go to Kristin's website. You can go to our website. If you want to know about property management, EmpireIndustriesLLC.com. Again, we have offices in Dallas, Fort Worth, and Houston. So Kristin, thank you so much for being on the show. I love talking to you. I'm going to be up in Dallas We're going to be on a couple shows up there. I'm going to come to your event.
Good, and I'm hoping you're going to come be on my show.
Yes, I am.
So,
I'm going to come be on
the
your
next
show.
time you're in Dallas on a Friday, let's just schedule
Knock
it,
it out.
and because we'll just have fun. I mean, we'll sit there on the couch. We're going to talk about property management. I'd love to hear property management horror stories.
Down and dirty. Absolutely.
Down and dirty
Absolutely.
property management horror stories, and we can just, oh my God, I got some good ones. I think we could like have a whole show about swapping the do's and don'ts of property
Absolutely.
management.
Absolutely. Well, Kristin, thank you so much. And everyone, we'll see you next week. The Landlord Survival Show, selfmanagemyproperty.com. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.
This has been the Landlord Survival Show. Join us next time for more of what the gurus don't tell you about owning rentals. And for even more, find us on Facebook.
Brought to you by Empire Industries Property Management. Built for investors, by investors. For more information about this show, visit our website, selfmanagemyproperty.com, home of the ultimate landlord survival handbook.